Brady's hot. Yeah.
The clap.
One of these times I want to figure out what that actually does.
It syncs everything up.
That's what they tell me, so I just trust them.
James probably knows. Do you know? It syncs.
No, I'm not an audio specialist, but yeah, all the stuff that we do with Easton or Hoyt or whatever, it's everyone claps.
Yeah.
I think you clap to start it to get excited. You know, you're like,
everybody clap?
Yeah, everybody clap. Yeah, like good job, we started.
The other night we went to dinner and we were walking down one of the side streets here, and there's kind of an alleyway between two buildings. I'm just like right off my right ear, just super loud. There's like some dude just screaming in this woman's face, and I was like, what in the world? Startled me. I turned and looked. Did you see this?
No.
I turned and looked, just like shock, turned and look, and it was somebody filming something, like a movie or something.
Yes.
And there was a couple of actors, and they had this full camera set up, and they had some lighting and stuff, but this guy was just like screaming in this lady's face, and I was like, what in the world?
Yeah.
Caught me majorly off guard.
What if we saw that from the other angle towards the actors and like ran over to help them?
I thought we were going to have to mix it up, Brady.
Yeah.
We saw something like that, and took the family to Hawaii a few weeks ago. Had a little break between hunting in Arizona and this aero ballistics study we're doing, and something similar, but it wasn't acting.
Oh,
it
was, like an actual domestic dispute?
Oh, yeah, and I kind of hung around to make sure there was no physicalness going on, but it was all just verbal, and eventually it calmed down, but man, I was like, the hair stood up on the back of my neck.
Yeah.
Because as a guy, you have to stay there and make sure everything's okay.
Yeah,
you have to. You
got to step in. It's
especially
just
if there's a female involved. Like,
exactly.
You got to stay there.
Yeah. Well, we have James Yates today. We appreciate you popping over.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah.
Good to have you guys on.
Yeah. Give us we've never met before.
Yeah, I should have said good to be with you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, we appreciate you carving out some time. Feels early on the fourth day of the expo. Like 9 o'clock feels early to me today, given the fact that the last 3 days have been so hectic.
Yeah.
And busy. So we appreciate you being here early.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah. So give us a background. So I've followed you on social media forever. I mean, I'm always checking to see all the big giant deer you're killing. So you're from up here.
You said deer, not elk, because deer are better. You started off with deer. Thank you.
Are you? Yeah, maybe that's a good leading question.
Yeah.
Which one?
Oh, hands down, mule deer.
Mule deer.
Finally, we got the guys in here we need to have.
You saved that hoodie for today, huh?
I honestly did. No, I really did.
That's funny.
So I've hunted mule deer my whole life with my dad. I killed my first buck when I was 12 in Wyoming because I could hunt there 2 years before Utah because I used to be 14 at the time. So I've hunted out of state and in state since I think the first hunt I went on with my dad where we were actually like hardcore hunting, beyond just the truck. I was 10. When I specifically remember he killed a nice 4-point in Wyoming. And then when I was 12, that was the first buck I killed was in Wyoming. And that's like all we did, but kind of like your typical that generation, we mostly hunted from the truck, and it had to be a place where you could drag the deer to the truck.
Deer drives.
Yeah, deer drive. Yeah, exactly, that sort of stuff. So that's what I did growing up with both my grandpas, all rifle, and eventually I got so sick of the pumpkin patch in Utah, and my dad and I we had an area in the West Desert that we'd hunt here, and eventually, just with predation, a lot of cats, I think probably some overhunting issues, it just got decimated. So we moved areas, and I remember this like when I was in high school, and I eventually like had to like tell my dad that we're gonna have to hike into some place, and we just got to get away from pressure. And I had been doing all sorts of, I was probably early 20s at this point, and I'm like, we can do this. We can pack an animal out. I had an Arcteryx backpack because I had a strong climbing background. I was like, I think I could get a deer in this backpack, and we can get it out. So it's like the second to last night before the hunt ends. We moved areas last minute, and I went up there and I killed a 3-point like 4 miles from the truck.
Yeah.
And my dad was like,
what have we done?
What have we done? And just to make the point, I put the entire deer, I carried everything that I carried in. It was just a day hunt. And I carried the whole thing out, and he was like, oh my word. Anyway, so that.
Yeah. But you've always loved muleys then. Like it's
Well, so I grew, so that was that. Went on a Mormon mission. Came back.
Where'd you go?
I went to Paraguay.
Okay, gotcha.
And then I came back. Was pretty intense into chemical. I graduated as a chemical engineer, which is pretty intense.
The U of U or where?
BYU.
BYU, gotcha.
Yeah, they have a really good chemical engineering program. And we still hunt Wyoming and Utah. But then I got out and I actually like I'd mentioned, climbing has been a big part of my life. I actually had back-to-back climbing injuries. I ruptured a tendon, this tendon that connects back up in here, and I was out for 9 months. Partially tore the tendon. Got it all healed up, and then I was back climbing again, and I think my muscles had atrophied a little bit, and then I screwed up a rotator cuff. So I was like 18 months that I wasn't climbing, and I was starting to get a little depressed, and my wife was like, man, you got to figure something else out. And we'd been shooting bows a little bit at the shop, mostly traditional archery, and I bought a compound, and I was like, oh, man, I can get into this. And for whatever reason, it didn't hurt my shoulder.
You lefty?
I'm a lefty.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got into archery, and it surprises people, but that was only 2012.
Yeah, not long ago.
Not long ago. But I'm the type of person that just goes head over heels into something, and that snowball effect, the cascading, and just my thought process is like within 2 years, I felt like I knew more than any shop that I went to, and bought all my own stuff and just started doing it. And so I'm pretty self-taught in archery. For about a 5 to 7 year period, I pretty much only wanted to archery hunt, and I was actually really into archery elk hunting because it was a little different than what I had done with my dad. And eventually, we'd started having kids, and I was taking like the whole month of September off, a little bit of the end of August too. And my wife, in 2018, I remember she was like, "You got to spread this out. Like I'm not
can't do a whole month.
I'm not going to control how much. I don't want to control you, but you just got to spread it out." And I was like, "Well, you really only bow hunt. I mean, on the front, I can bow hunt in November, but." So I was like, okay, well, I had 7 points in Colorado, and I mean, it just felt like blasphemy to use those on a rifle hunt. But I was like, I'm going to do it. So I spent 7 points on a 3-point unit and killed a really nice wide 4-point, almost 30, had like a 4-inch cheater, like 3.5-inch eye guards. And I was like, and I went with a buddy, and we went on his horses in like high country Colorado, second season. I killed above 11,000 feet. And I was like, holy cow, you can make a rifle hunt badass.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And then from then on, I've been really, I say weapons agnostic. I really don't care what weapon. I mean, I obviously have a preference for archery.
Yeah.
And archery is like my big main decompression. My work's fairly stressful. So archery is a good decompression for me. But yeah, when it comes to hunting, I'm not the type of guy that I don't have, I kind of have some humble beginnings, don't have a lot of money. I'm not buying tags or anything like that. I play the same game that 99% of people do. So I just want to have the weapon in hand that gives me the best chance to kill the biggest deer I can.
Yep.
Generally public land, general OTC or easy to draw tags. And I kind of, Utah, I'm really partial to hunting the extended with 10,000 other people, and because I can hunt in between, work or in the morning or whatever. And
yeah. What was your take on they have a separate hunt now, right, where you can apply for it and guarantee it? And I think the general intent was to alleviate people that were applying for other areas with no intent to hunt those areas, and then just rolling that tag into the late season, that Wasatch Extended.
Yeah. And
then they made a separate pool of permits available. I was on that mule deer committee. My preference was like, I kind of wanted to make it like its own hunt, but I'm curious, did it add pressure? Do you feel like, or is it about the same?
It's about the same. I just, it's so hard to judge because there is so much pressure.
It's just a lot of pressure generally.
There's just a lot, like, so I don't know. So I'm really, 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 really secretive and don't talk much about where I hunt except for the front because
it's the front.
It's the front. I mean, I'm already dealing with 5 to 10. I mean, people think I'm joking, but it's literally like combat hunting, and you just
really? I've never done it.
I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I've killed 4 giant mule deer on the hunt, and it's, you just got to take it what it is. It's not my like 16 miles in Colorado pristine experience, right? So I don't take it for more than what it is, but to be able to incorporate it into my job and my family, and be able to hunt mornings. So that's a big, the more time you have in the field and work into your schedule. So like a lot of these guys, there's a lot of guys that are very successful and they're able to spend a lot of time in the field. And I've just figured out how I can make that work for me and my schedule and my family. And this hunt's a big part of it. And then I can save my time away from my family and work for other pursuits. So if I were to go someplace else in Utah to hunt, that starts to become kind of like an out-of-state hunt, So that's just one thing that's helped me, and then I can focus more when I'm kind of just morning hunting or evening hunting here locally. I can focus my time away from my family on.
You and I are probably pretty similar age. We were talking in the elevator, but did I hear you right? So I can't remember for sure, but I want to say that my first buck I was 16 in Utah. It used to be 16, was it not? Do you remember?
14.
14?
So I'm 40, turned 41 in March.
Gotcha. I've always thought like, first year, I wanted to say I was 16, and I have it in my mind that was like the first year I could hunt, but I'm not entirely sure now. That's interesting. I'll have to ask my dad if maybe he just held me back for 2 years.
Probably did. He's like, you need to wait a little bit. You're not proficient with any weapon
quite
yet.
Ready to put me in the field yet at 14. That's funny. I've often wondered that. When you said that, it just like sparked that memory in the back of my mind. I was like, I wonder.
Yeah, so I've been, very strong attention to detail my whole life. I remember when I was 12, like I'd done hunter safety and everything, and we were hunting in the Black Hills.
Your dad hunted a lot then.
Yeah,
like he got you out a lot.
Yeah, my dad got me out. My grandpa got my grandpa on my mom's side, he killed through the draw every once in a lifetime species in Utah except for Rockies.
Really?
Yeah, Rocky Mountain sheep. But at the time they weren't in a population that could be hunted here in the state. So unfortunately, he before he died, there was a stable population, so he kind of just missed that one. But during most of his golden years, they weren't available. So yeah, I've got a strong hunting tradition on both sides of the family.
I cut you off. You were talking to Black Hills.
Yeah, the Black Hills. So it's just funny that when I was 12, there was a big whitetail. I think it was a big buck, 10 point, but really long tines. And, there was an abandoned farmhouse behind it and somewhere behind it and, kind of flat rollers. And I wouldn't take the shot cause I was like, I'm not, I'd just gotten fresh out of hunter safety.
Right.
And my dad really respected that decision and, made that at 12. So I know it's been, just a guy
that
for
is
the
good.
details.
I've got a 13-year-old, so he drew an Arizona late rifle tag this year for elk, and we went down, hunted very last morning. He really wanted to kill a bull. He killed a good buck in Utah earlier, but
I saw that.
Yeah, killed a good buck. But we were down there very last morning, and those bull, a lot of pressure on those late rifle hunts. They've really stacked the tags in, and we had this little pocket. I knew these bulls were going to come through one little pinch point, and we had maybe 5 to 10 minutes before they were going to make timberline and cruise along. And, to get a 12-year-old to jump shoot an elk, it's just not going to work out. So I'm like, we have this window, right? So it's just getting light. And the bulls are kind of filtering through. And I'm like, yep, they're right there. I think they're about 310 yards. So I've got him on the tripod, gun, everything set up. And we played that cat and mouse game of like one bull would step behind a tree. And I would say, do you see that one? Yeah, I'll find that one. So he'd find it in the scope. And then that one would like turn his back to us, couldn't get a shot. And there were a couple of times where I knew he had the bull or a bull in the scope, had the crosshairs, and I would be like, you got him, you on him? And he's like, yep. And I'm like, you feel good? And he's like, not great. I'm not quite there. And yeah, I mean, for a kid that wanted it so bad, I really respected his choice of just like, he didn't feel comfortable in the shot. He didn't take the shot.
Good for him.
And then we had, he had a complete crash out on the back end of it. Like after they kind of worked through, we never did get a shot. We didn't get a bull. Like he was really, really upset. But the whole way home, I remember having this conversation with him. Like, you did the right thing. Like, that was the choice that I would have wanted you to make. Like, I don't want you to take a shot that you're not comfortable with. So yeah, interesting. Kids are fun, huh?
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, I'm starting my boys young. I mean, both of them, we have a lever action 22, and I specifically bought a lever action, so they have to acquire the target after every single shot.
Yep.
Open sights.
That's a good strategy.
Yeah, so I've incorporated my kids into hunting as much as I can get them out of school. So I mean, they're with me on a lot of hunts. I'm a really picky mule deer hunter, so I tend to take them elk hunting.
Right.
Because elk, I just want to, honestly, at this point, I just want to kill. I mean, I have a big focus on killing a elk every year to put, steaks and roast in the freezer. But to me, it's just, that's that. And we eat the mule deer as well, but it's just not we make sausage and jerky and stuff out of the mule deer. But yeah, so I'm a really picky mule deer hunter, and I just want to kill a bull for the freezer. So.
Is there talking extended, and you've killed some phenomenal bucks, and you talked about the pressure. Is there an added sense of satisfaction given the fact that you are dealing with so much pressure and you beat the odds? That there's so many people out looking.
Oh yeah, certainly. I mean, yeah, there's some of that to it. It is really difficult. It's more or less so like the buck. A lot of the bucks that I've killed, they've been in hidey holes that not a lot of people have been aware of, but there's always been some pressure. There's some really good hunters here. But the last big buck that I killed in 2024 is kind of like the Medusa looking big 3-point with a really goofy main beam. And
that was a cool buck.
The hook cheater. That buck opening morning had like 15 guys on him.
Really?
But the funny thing is everyone was hunting him on one side of the ridge because that's where everyone saw him. In the very, I'm talking pre 30 minutes, with really good glass, you can start to see and pick things apart prior to 30 minutes before sunrise. He was actually feeding on the other side, and within the first 15 minutes, he was up and over on the other side. And I'd seen him in that pattern the last half of August, and so I had that buck opening morning that year to myself in an ambush. It was too brushy to do anything more than ambush him as he came up and over the ridge. And I had that buck at 620 and 60 yards. I drew on him twice and just no shot opportunity with other bucks filtering through. And then he eventually winded us, and I had a buddy up there as well. He was sitting in a little different spot, and then he bounced up and over the ridge, and as he crested up and over the ridge, kind of in an angle. I think another guy actually got a crazy
a Hail Mary.
Yeah, Hail Mary running shot, and then as big bucks do on the front, he disappeared. And I don't know if anybody saw him after opening day until the day I killed him in mid-October.
Wow.
So they just straight up disappear, and I just go up every single morning that I can, and I sacrifice a ton of sleep to be able to do that, to just maintain work and my hunting endeavors and my hunting industry endeavors and family pursuits. So,
did you end up killing him that way, like kind of ambush style?
No, it was spot and stalk.
Gotcha.
But for the most part, the front and its elevation makes spot and stalk hunting very difficult.
Yeah.
Because they all get into big timber. You guys probably understand that game. It's not there's a couple of basins that are like Colorado-esque, but not for the most part. It's ambush hunting. Scouting time is invaluable. I mean, it's so crucial. But no, so this was actually the first of the 4 big bucks. I've killed 4 really good bucks on the front, and this was the first one that was like a spot and stalk opportunity. It was just a regular for me October morning, and he was out in the. I caught him on tree line. His antlers were just sticking up out of brush. I had to move about 200 yards to verify that it was him because I couldn't see his full rack. Moved I saw him, was like, oh my word. And you can't like on the front, you can't wait, because I knew that he was east facing. I knew that he was eventually going to be the sun was going to hit him. So I was like, I can't wait for the thermals to switch. And I felt like with the wind that was coming that I could work down. I have this kind of strategy of keeping 90 degrees to the wind. Yeah, I mean, especially if you're in a position where you're wanting a deer, especially as you get close to where you're at, cheating the wind or 90 degrees to the wind. Oftentimes a buck, and especially in rutting country, will get up, and if there's a lead doe, they feed into the wind. Mm-hmm. And if you're 180 degrees to the wind, you're just going to get an ass shot, right? Mm-hmm. So I like to cheat the wind a little bit. In this particular instance, I had to cheat the wind with just the way the prevailing wind was in the thermals, but I snuck into 50 yards, 55 yards, I think, and I was next to a pine tree, and I literally had this narrow gap, and he had literally 5 yards before he was going to be in pine trees. But I literally had I could see his entire body and maybe like 1 yard in front of him. Mm-hmm. And I just sat there for 45 minutes next to the pine tree. Like, I'm not kidding, like tension on the string.
Like ready to pull.
Like tension on the string for 45 minutes, like supreme concentration. And I was at full draw when that buck even started to stand up. I mean, he was starting to get itchy and rock back and forth, so I knew that he was going to stand up pretty soon. But I'm not kidding. Like, before his knees locked out, I was at full draw, and arrow was on the way.
Really?
Yeah.
Uphill or downhill?
It was downhill.
Gotcha.
He was quartered more than I thought, so I hit a little back, but and he had actually started taking a little bit of a step, but shot the Sever 1.5, and it did work.
Yeah.
Like, all up through the body cavity, and he died on his feet in like 150 yards.
Wow.
That's cool.
That's it. I love all the, because most people's inclination is to get the wind directly in their face behind them, and you're right. That's like a great little tip that I've never processed and thought about, like the 90 degree to the wind. So you actually get the potential for the animal to be broadside or quartering away to you versus just trying to chase their rear end, right?
That's a big thing for mule deer hunting on the during bow hunting during the rut when they're actually. So prevailing winds are not as effective in the mountains. It's more dominated by thermals, but out in rollers or flat country like AZ Desert or some of the mule deer. I mean, some of the country in the Idaho stuff can be flatter and more prevailing winds based, or it can be mountains. But if you're in an area that has a prevailing wind and you're hunting a herd of mule deer, even elk, I don't do a lot of calling, but that dogging, staying 90 degrees to the animal. Mm-hmm. I also don't like to be in the red zone for that strategy for too long, because eventually the wind's going to screw you up. But if you're in a position, and sometimes the wind's going to give you up, but more times than not, if you're in a steady prevailing wind and I wouldn't get any closer than 90 degrees to the wind. But yeah, it's been a whole lot more effective for me.
Yeah, interesting. What do you do for sound? Anything different for sound as far as spot and stalk? Like, do you take your boots off? What's your approach to that?
I don't take my boots off. It's a cadence thing. Mm-hmm. So I did an article in Western Hunter on this, but how you walk as a two-legged thing and how your foot rolls. Mm-hmm. So that's very unnatural in the animal world. Like the concept of you striking and rolling your foot, no other animal does that. So I try to stay up on the balls of my feet. It's a little easier to do with boots on or shoes on. And then just vary your cadence. Don't just crush through it. Generally, you're not going to be given up by the steps if you do that. It's the brush. Mm-hmm. So a quiet pant is paramount. Even to the point like rolling your pants up. I mean,
tuck them in your socks, something like that.
Yeah. Tuck them in your socks. There are some pants on the market that they have, like, it's cool to see some articles of clothing being specifically made for really technical articles of clothing that have like I don't know, brushed outer face. The Sitka Intercept pant is pretty damn quiet.
Yeah.
I've been pretty impressed with that pant. I've not actually. I killed that last buck with those pants on, and I didn't roll them up. So that pant's pretty cool. The face fabric is substantially quieter than than anything that we're wearing here.
Like this, yeah.
Yeah, I love the so they had the Apex pant,
Yeah.
and then that one kind of replaced it.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit heavier. I love the Apex pant. That's like my go-to. I still have a pair. If I really want to get maximize my chances of being super stealthy, like that's always one of the go-tos, because it's been washed a billion times, and it's like a pair of pajama pants. You put that thing on.
Funny you mentioned that, because I always I've got a lot of bright and shiny new Sitka gear, but I always tend to wear the stuff that's beat up, especially from an archery perspective, because it's quieter. I've got a
good tip.
I've got one of their Kelvin insulated jackets. It's not a down one, but before it was a much quieter face fabric, and everyone's just trying to do this lightweight thing, and the fabrics are crunchier. So I've got this Kelvin jacket that I carry with me in case I need an extra layer. I mean, the ambient's great, but if you need something more than the ambient's really silent. I carry it, and I know a lot of guys there, and I tease them that, man, you guys need to start making some stuff that's a little quieter for us hunters. Just not all ultra lightweight stuff, because as soon as that face fabric gets a little thinner, it gets a little crunchier, and anyway, but yeah, same thing. I wash stuff a lot or beat it up a lot. Yeah. So.
You strike me. I mean, your background in chemical engineering.
Chemical.
Is that what you do for a living, full time?
Yes, I'm a consulting chemical engineer. I consult all over the country. Right now I'm working a lot in Kansas and Oklahoma. I mean, remotely. But I basically help refineries and other engineering or other energy industry sector, mostly debottleneck their process, help them with new emission standards to achieve new emission standards. Those things primarily.
Yeah. Point being, you strike me as like overly analytical for most people. Right?
I have to be.
You have to be, right? And
So refineries, there's a lot of money in that world, and they hire some really smart people. And if they're coming to a consultant to help them with a problem, it's a problem.
Sure.
So so I have meetings with refinery managers and oftentimes corporate head honchos at oil companies, and I got to be on my toes and on point and be able to digest really technical information and deliver it on to a certain level. So my job has wired my mind. I've been doing it for like 15 years. My mind already works like that, so it suits me, but yeah, I got to be on point with that.
And then you've taken that into hunting.
Exactly. Yeah, that's basically what it is.
Leads well into hunting.
Yeah, it leads well into hunting. What other kind of – is there any other thing that you can think of, maybe off the top of your head? It's a broad question. I'm sorry. But is there any other things that you think, like in regards to glassing or
Glassing. So everyone wants to think like – I saw a poll the other day. I don't even remember where it was. Everyone was like, what is the thing that makes you successful? And everyone has said time in the field. And I don't deny that. But it's effective time in the field. And I think that there is not enough focus on glassing. Like, everyone wants to talk about fitness. This fitness hunting thing, like, there's, it's Cam Hain, he's the godfather of hunting media. He's probably the most popular. And that's him. Then you got elk shape and whitetail fit, and that's very important. Being in shape is important. Being able to weapon proficiency is important. But I'm going to venture to say, I mean, how many of you guys, and you all know them, how many big burly hunters that aren't fit, probably don't shoot all that much, and they've killed some big ass deer?
For sure.
You know a lot. You know a lot.
Yeah.
You know what they do well? Glassing.
Yeah.
They're very patient. Glassing, I think, is probably, if you're hunting general season, high-pressured stuff, OTC, glassing, in my opinion, everything that I'm going to talk to is targeting big, old mule deer.
Sure.
Glassing is probably the single most important thing.
How how are you finding glassing locations? Are you using like Google Earth or, R Maps or Onyx or whatever, and then you're approaching those, and like what's your approach to a glassing session? So you have some country that you like, you think it looks good, like what's your analytical approach to actually finding the spot to get to? Are you timing out like how long you're going to spend on a certain point before you move? Like what is your approach to just glassing? Like say you're in a scouting phase, you haven't found a big buck, but you're looking for one.
So you can get big bucks during the summer will feed more in the open. They will occasionally feed in direct sunlight. So it's not as important as during the season, but if you beat the sun, great. You're not trying to beat the sun. You're trying to beat, 30 minutes before this. I mean, oftentimes I'm to my glassing point 45 minutes, 15 minutes before the sun comes up. And with quality optics, you can start to, with bigger objectives, start glassing with 115 millimeter, your 115 ATX.
Do you use that quite a bit?
Yeah, I carry it more than the BTX, honestly.
Really?
Because the light is, I'm telling you, 45 minutes before the sun comes up with the ATX, not the BTX, because the BTX cuts the light. But with an ATX, you can start picking stuff out 45 minutes before the sun comes up.
And you're carrying a 115 millimeter objective?
I carry, and a big ass, really right stuff tripod to make it stable. That's the other thing. Like these guys that I mean, there are some really lightweight tripods, but I see these pencil thin tripods or these tiny little heads supporting that ATX 115 is really hard because the balance is bad. It actually balances better with the BTX. You've probably seen this. You need a big head. Like I was on an Arizona mule deer hunt here recently, and my buddy came over and was watching my digiscoping film of like, and just looking through my stuff. He was like, holy cow, this is so much more stable. And I'm like, yeah, there's no point in carrying this big, ultra big glass if you can't reduce those micro movements in your glass. So like price point tripods are great and lightweight tripods are great. But there is something to be said for a sturdy, little heavier, probably a little bit more expensive tripod. You can have the nicest glass in the world, but if you've got spaghetti noodles supporting it, it's not that. You're not I mean, if you spent 50, what is it? I mean, you guys sell optics. What is an ATX? What is an ATX 115
I have no idea. Brady would know. I don't know one.
Yeah, I bought mine so long ago now. It's expensive.
$5,500
somewhere around there. Yeah.
And you're supporting it with a $300 tripod.
Yeah. You have to have a full kit. You have to have something heavy to hold that.
That's what's interesting to talk to different people, because my glassing setup is typically like a 15 by 56 on a tripod, and I'm doing probably 90% plus of my glassing through a 15 by 56. And I'm really only carrying like a 65 millimeter spotter, and I'm just spot checking. So I find an animal and I'm spot checking it. And if I'm going to digiscope it or whatever, or if it's an animal I want to pursue, I might follow it with that scope to put it in, to a bed to then try to make it approach. But yeah, I've never even owned anything bigger than a 65 millimeter objective. So it's interesting to hear different people's takes on on their approach.
So I'm not 100% looking through the ATX. That's just like the first wee hours in the morning.
Right.
That's the most light gathering, that ATX. And another tidbit, for whatever reason, how your phone processes things, I'll actually start glassing with my digiscoping adapter attached. Does that make sense? So for whatever reason, the phone
enhances that light.
It does.
And it's a bigger screen too, and you can kind of move a little bit quicker.
So I'm like literally some mornings I'm up there not filming anything, but I'm literally scanning, and I'm not at that point, I'm not glassing a mile away, but I'm just glassing close stuff. But that's honestly how I found this deer in 24, in that really early morning pattern. So it's really effective. And then the biggest reason, and then after that, then I'm binos on a tripod, or the image stabilizing binos, I think, are epic. And I'm waiting, the SIG HDX Pros are amazing. I can't wait to start hitting the alpha glass, that technology, because it kind of already is with the, I don't know what it's called, but Swaro just released the spotter that does it.
The AT balance and the ST balance.
Yep.
And rumor is they're probably coming out with something.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Don't know when, but they have to be.
Yeah,
and they just go, oh yeah,
I haven't heard any rumors, but it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think the SIG has stolen some market
For
share, especially amongst like alpha glassers, I call them. You have alpha glass and alpha glassers. I mean, I've seen a number of guys, myself included, that have converted over to the SIGs, and Swaro's got Leica. They've got it. They're aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
They're aware that they've lost some market. So there's nowhere they're not doing it.
Yeah, where those really shine for me, and it's like they're worth every penny, weight in gold, is especially when you start your approach. Because you're doing a lot of offhand glassing as you're making your approach, and when you get within that 100 yards and you're just looking for like a tine or an ear or something, that stability is unmatched. Yeah, just to be able to pick up any detail.
The other reason why I like them is going back to that micro movement of your tripod.
Mm-hmm.
People don't understand how important that is. Like, if you're long range glassing, that stability is so important. So if there's even any sort of remote breeze, I have the HDX 18s versus my NL Pures on the tripod to just
little added stability.
Just flatten out those micro movements. That's paramount for glassing. I can't stress glassing enough. I mean, that's if I get to spend a lot of time in the field, not as much as others. I still have a full-time job and family and whatnot. So I mean, my key to success, especially big mule deer, is glassing. We got like
but it was all good. That was great.
Yeah, but to answer your question, so being early is very important. Starting to glass. Also, so first of all, a big mule deer, if he is in an easy spot that other people can find, he's not gotten to be big. There are some genetic freaks, right? There are bucks that go, well into the 200s that are 3 or 4 years old. That that happens, but they're anomalies, right?
Yeah.
So you want to be in areas that aren't like that typical area where it's like
where
how
people are going to think to look.
Yeah, where people are going to think to look. How is a buck going to get big there? How is a buck going to get age class? So I'm not necessarily just looking for an old buck. I'm looking for an old buck that's got good genetics. So like it's even harder, right? So just thinking outside of the box, checking little micro areas. So typically what I do is I start really macro, like really, really, really macro. So I'm trying to find points where I can see the vast, like a ton of country. And from there, I'll move into, so from there, I'm using big optics, ATX 115, BTX, the 14 NL Pures or whatever. And I'm trying to just cover as much country as I can. I'm trying to see if there's any low-hanging fruit, bucks up in bachelor groups, bucks that have dominant body sizes or frames that are really big. I'm not necessarily counting inches at that distance. And then I'll move in and start checking micro areas from there. So I do my big, vast, open country basin stuff from well back macro perspective, and then that leaves me time generally to check these nooks and crannies that you can't hit from a macro. But if you're trying to glass every basin, like in your typical 1 to 1.5 miles, you're not going to have enough time, right? So the stuff that you can see really well, I like to be further back so I can kind of group it up together from one vantage point. And then that leaves a little bit of time to check the hidden little gems. And it's probably been 50-50 where I've found, this is scouting, right? So bucks will behave way differently when their velvet's on, when they're not being pursued. And you can find them in the open. Once the hunt comes, that's the big trick, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So, a lot of people think that bow hunting. I mean, if my wall of fame at home or whatever, not all of, but 4 of my biggest deer that I've ever killed are with a bow, and one's with a rifle and one's with a muzzleloader, and turns archers off a little bit when I say this, but I don't. A lot of the bow hunters think that, they're God's gift to hunting, and it's the purest form of hunting, and it's the hardest form of hunting. I don't know if I agree with that. A rifle hunt, target. So I'm not talking like just going out and whacking a 2-point, right?
Yeah.
But going out and hunting, 100, 180, 190, 200-inch type deer. Those October general season hunts kick your trash so hard because you may not even see a buck of that caliber. And I'm not talking limited entry. I'm not talking any of that because I can't speak to that. I'm talking finding and killing a well above average mule deer, general season, OTC. I mean, honestly, I've killed way more with a bow than I have with a gun. So,
yeah, it's like opposite ends. They're just different difficulty in different aspects. So it's easier to find, I think, early season.
Yep.
And it's harder to kill.
Yep.
And then rifle, it's a lot harder to find. It's a smidge easier it's a bit easier to kill if you can find them. But if you can find them consistently,
well, if you can find them, you can. So that's
you can kill them. But that's what's hard is consistently finding them day in day out to be able to get in range and shoot them with a rifle or a muzzler.
Yep. If there's one thing that I've said, if you can find a big mule deer, you can kill it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can't find them, you can't kill them.
Yeah. I have the belief that, like, the older the buck, the tighter the home range.
Oh, yeah, that's 100% true.
You believe that too?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
They go to the spot where they get fucked with the least.
Yeah, they've survived X amount of years from predation, hunters. They've got the feed that they need. It just makes sense that they're just going to shrink that down as tight as they can get it and still survive because if you start to expand that range, you open yourself up to predation. So to me, it's always made sense that the older the buck, the bigger the buck, the tighter the home range, the pocket. It's just being able to find him. I mean, I killed a buck, one of my best bucks. I only ever saw him 2 times before I killed him, but I killed him in the exact same drainage I saw him the very first time. He wasn't 100 yards from where I saw him. And I continually go back and think, where in the world was that thing? Because he was right there somewhere, just using it in a way I wasn't finding it. Yeah, it does make it fun. I always like to give Brady shit because it's like, I think mule deer hunting, there's not a level of satisfaction that I've felt in hunting than scouting a buck and killing that buck. It's the most satisfying thing I've had in hunting. It also comes with about 90% of the time that just sucks. You're just pouring over country day in, day out. You're not seeing anything. I mean, I had a 5 or 6 day stretch that was just pouring rain most of the days. And I think I saw a 2-point and a doe in 5 days. And it's hard. It's a mental grind. But I think that's why when it comes to fruition and you actually kill that animal, the satisfaction, that gratification, because you just put so much work and effort into it. I like to give Brady a bad time about mule deer, but I mean, I'll own the fact that like the most satisfying feeling I've had in hunting has been finding a buck and killing that buck.
Yeah. So that's me, 100%. So I am not a quantity guy. I generally have 5 or 6 tags every year, but since 2019, I've killed 10 bucks. And I've probably had 40 mule deer tags.
Yeah.
And
you eat a lot of tags.
I eat a ton of tags. Like I just don't. I've killed. We kind of started this conversation off with I've killed a lot of deer, and as long as I've got meat in the freezer, I just don't find the need to kill something that it just doesn't. I'm not in this to like. I'm not a bloodthirsty guy. Sure. If I've got a bull in the freezer. And I've killed like a little bit more than 1 mule deer a year since 2019. And since then I've killed, some really big ass deer, 3 points that are well over 160. And then everything else has been over 180. And my biggest buck's 237. So,
yeah.
But
absolute giant.
But yeah, I mean, I think that mentality, like I kind of want to make that mentality a little more popular because the kind of the screw the non-resident thing that's going around right now, like I'm not the type of guy who's ever going to tell somebody not to kill something. But if you got 5 mule deer tags and you've killed a couple and you've got a bull, do you need to fill those other 3 tags? I mean, could you be a little bit more selective because you've got meat in the freezer, right? But then if you've got the biggest buck that you've ever killed right in front of you, whether that's 130-inch 4-point or whatever, shoot it.
Sure.
You know, but the idea that to just go and whack a whole bunch of deer that are like below, just set a goal for yourself and stick to it. And I think if we kind of self-governed ourselves a little bit more, we probably wouldn't see the drastic tag cuts and the Idahos going to draws. And I fear that the Arizona thing's going to go to a draw, and you losing elk opportunities in Colorado. And it's just harder and harder. So I have been playing the non-resident hunting out-of-state game since before I could hunt. Like 12 years old, first year. So it is making me cry seeing opportunities that I've enjoyed my entire life going away. I could hunt Wyoming every other year with my dad, and now it's like, good luck trying to get a general.
Yeah.
But I mean, if we kind of governed ourselves a little bit, and we're maybe a little bit more selective, and just didn't whack a deer to just whack a deer. And I'm mostly talking about deer because they seem to be struggling a little bit more. And I'm not saying don't fill the freezer. I'm not trying to be the douche there. I'm just saying that if you've got 5 mule deer tags and you come down to your last 3, maybe be a little bit more selective.
Yeah.
You don't need to kill 5 below average mule deer.
Rather than just fill them to fill them. Yeah.
It's an unpopular thing, but I feel like that should be, I don't know. I'm here advocating that eating tags is cool.
It is. I've ate a lot of tags the last few years. I haven't killed a big buck in a long time. It's just hard to.
I respect that. I respect that you're holding out for you had I've followed you both for a long time. You had a really good tag that you ate.
Yeah. This is the second time I've had what's arguably the best.
The best tag he'll ever
in
have.
In the state. And this was now the better one than I had before. I had a really good Montana tag back in the day, like the best unit.
And you're in a good mule deer state.
Yeah. And this same thing this year, just, 30 days of scouting, 14 days of hunting. Like every weekend I was up there scouting, had big bucks found, but they slip away. And then towards the end of the hunt, I'm like, do I need another 170 buck?
Yeah, so I was just going to ask. I'm sure you could have killed.
Even the last day. I could have killed a buck. Second to last day, passed up a buck. And I'm like, looking at my watch constantly, like, hey, I got 15 minutes left. It could happen on a bigger deer.
Yeah.
Like, why am I going to shoot that deer I saw down in this little corner? It could happen, and I'm fine to eat it. And, yeah, it stings to eat the best tag in the state. But you set goals and you're hunting big deer. It's like I'm at a stage of my life where I want to hunt mature deer.
Yeah, exactly. I respect the hell out of that. Same thing. In 24, I killed a booner in Wyoming, legit 192 net, typical. That buck here on the front, right around 200 inches.
Same year?
Yeah, 2024, I killed that buck in Wyoming. He was green. I had him at 201. He officially scored, shrunk up a little bit inside spread. It was like 198 and change officially, 192 net. And then that buck up on the front here was right there as well, just over 200 inches green gross. Dry. I mean, they lose that inside spread a little bit, and they lose an 1/8 to a 1/4 inch on mass. I think he ended up dried like 197 and or 198 and 1/8, I think is what it was.
What year was that?
2024.
Okay.
Then I also killed a low 160s 3-point that was like 29 inches wide. That's a big 3-point.
Yeah, big.
That's a cool 3.
And that was in a state that's traditionally not given me much sugar, so I hunt it every year. But that was actually the first big, good 160-inch 3-point mule deer is a big deer.
Yeah.
And that was cool. But then I actually had a Colorado tag that year. An opening morning, this was a leftover tag, 180-inch 4-point, and I was like, it was 190. The goal was 190. Normally my goal is 180 on out-of-state hunts. But I was like, man, I killed a bull too, that I never even posted. And I just if it didn't meet that goal, I'm not going to pull the trigger. And I had backpacked in on this plateau and I was hunting this bright country in a burn. No, there wasn't a soul. And I just watched that deer for 30 minutes feed below me, 180 inches, 4-inch eye guards.
There's just something cool about that, just watching them.
And I was just like, yeah, it didn't meet the goal. I'm not going to pull the trigger. And yeah, so, I mean, with the exception of 24, I basically have killed 1 deer a year since 2019 and just focusing. So I hunt a lot and have a lot of tags, but generally, depending on, so I track all the moisture and I track all the
That's the reason I asked you the year that you killed those 2 deer, and that's where I was kind of headed. Is do you think that, given your experience of hunting big deer, are there trends as far as weather that you've noticed?
Oh yeah, I mean, I get my typical, I know where I want to hunt and I know what weapon I want to hunt with in every state that I hunt. Like I said, I try to maximize my efficiency. And I just want to kill the biggest deer I can, general OTC, public land, whatever. And so I track the weather, like on my phone app. I'm not going to show you, but on my iPhone app, I have the nearest town to my typical mule deer hunting areas. And I wake up every morning and I look at the weather for those areas. On my iPhone.
I have a similar thing in a couple of my weather apps too, just like constantly geeking out on it.
Yeah, just my iPhone. Just the iPhone weather app, that town, I get it. I look at the weather, I look at the forecasts, the snowtail reports I look at frequently. But then you got to take that with a grain of salt, because once you get like mountain deer, they're not as affected by drought, even if the drought's pretty extreme, because they can use different aspects of the mountain to get away from, to be into more nutrient dense stuff that doesn't burn up. So it's typically, I'm more worried about bitter cold or
deep snows,
deep
and
snow.
hard frost.
So it's not so much. I can deal with deep snow, especially on the winter range. But what hurts on the winter range is when you get a deep snow, it warms up, and then the freeze. So that layer of crust,
and they got to paw through it.
So that's mostly what I'm looking at this time of year. Is the winter range. Now, some of the areas I hunt, the current state of the West has got me concerned with water, but the more mountain-oriented areas that I'm not as concerned. The year that I killed that buck, the really big buck in 2020, that was a drought year, and that year that buck was 8 years old, and that was his biggest year. He was 219 the year before, I think.
What elevation? High mountain buck?
So I killed him last day of November, and he was about 9,000 feet, and that's right where he rutted where he summered.
Gotcha. So he was up pretty high still.
Yeah.
What's your take on this year? It's been pretty dry.
Yeah. So again, the mountain areas that I hunt, I'm not as worried. I think from a growth perspective, coming out of the spring, having good body health, they're going to be able to put nutrition to their antlers better. So I'm not actually mountain oriented areas. If you were to cut Utah in half, north of that or whatever, I feel pretty comfortable. South of that, it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Where the water dictates how good the feed is.
It also, as you're talking, I'm thinking about it because I know, like, for example, I live in southern Utah and I'll hunt those, I've got a couple of units that I really like that I grew up hunting. I can find deer, and I've killed deer in August, early September, or even late on the muzzleloader hunt, and those have been low country bucks. They're cedar, sagebrush bucks, and then I've also killed some deer, some of my better deer, like up in elevations, 10, 10.5. Maybe a year like this, it's a year where you look high and you don't spend a lot of time down low because it is so dry.
Yeah, or potentially, the other way that I'd look at that is to potentially focus low, potentially focus for those deer that. So in southern Utah specifically, those deer do some really weird things with the oak brush and the acorns dropping. That can be really hard to figure out. Specifically areas, and it's tied to the acorns. But in areas where there's ag and there's public land that's near the ag, that could be a great focus on a year like this.
Yeah, they'll pull into that low stuff to get the best feed where it's being irrigated.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So on a year like this, like, and I've got a southern oriented tag, southern Utah, Nevada, Arizona. Though Arizona's gotten pretty good amount of rain this year.
Yeah.
I'm talking like extreme desert country there. So it's actually outlook there is pretty good. The 2025 season down there they had like 8 or 9 months without rain. So this hunt down there this year was really tough. But just thinking outside of the box there, I mean, I think a lot of people would think go high in that situation, but if you've got public land near ag, that could be a big focus this year.
Yeah, just maybe point being that much more intentional about where you decide to scout and hunt based on the fact that the water has been so poor and the snowpack has been so poor.
Oh, that would 100% affect every decision that I make on a tag
for
this year.
sure. Yeah, interesting.
I mean, everything is like, you guys is like the hunt planner company. I subscribe to you guys. I use your stuff, the odds. So I'm the type that when you guys started doing your thing, I was like, curse that. because I was like, that was my edge, right?
Sure.
Like I could get any tag I wanted to. And I knew, you should see the spreadsheets and stuff that I developed. Like you guys have like a predictor now, right? Like, yeah, I was doing that. 15 years ago.
Back in the day.
I was predicting draw odds.
Pulling on the number of tags allocated at each point level and how many people it applied
exactly,
above and beyond the point break.
And then I'd figure out. I mean, I got spreadsheets to do this. I'd figure out how many people were the newcomers from the year previous. How many people were holed over. I'd apply that to the next point category. I mean, I had spreadsheets that did all this. And then you guys come out and do it. I'm like, that's just great. For $100, somebody can get that. I'd apply, and it'd take me a week to apply for a hunt. And because
just crunching numbers.
And it got to a point where I had some automated spreadsheets where I'd drop it in and you'd be tracking it enough. Now I don't even do that anymore. Your guys' stuff is so legit that so it saves time, and it's great because I'm way busier than I ever have been. But
sure.
Yeah, just trying to find like where is a big buck going to survive. And I'll tell you what, if we all want to go on that Colorado high country open basin spot and stock hunting, but you're probably, unless you're in a really restricted point unit, like you've spent a lot of points or you spent a crap ton of money on the tag, that may not be the best spot to kill a big mule deer because it's not the hardest hunting. Like where I've killed a lot of my big deer are areas that are really difficult to glass. They can get into a place and they can hide. And one thing I like to think is we've probably shot out. So, if there's a fight or flight genetic amongst mule deer, everything's got a fight or flight genetic. If you think about it, with the traditional pursuits that our parents and grandparents did pursuing mule deer, they did deer drives, right? So I think we've probably shot out as human beings that flight genetic in mule deer. So I think a lot of the mule deer, the one that I've experienced that have gotten older is that hide genetic. Hold tight, and those are the deer I think that are surviving. And the deer that are holding tight in thick country, those are the deer that are surviving, and they're not the easiest places to hunt.
Yeah,
it's a really good way to put that.
Yeah, hold tight, keep your head down.
And you'll find that what you're paying for with high points is good access and good hunting conditions, good hunting topography.
Less pressure.
Sure. That's not to say you can't find. That's the only, like, even those, like, sometimes you're like in Colorado, for instance, you're probably just paying to get that high country. You're paying in points to get that high country feel, and it may not have the biggest deer.
Right.
Whereas other areas in Colorado or Wyoming or where, I'm just, stating things, Idaho, you might have a better chance of killing a big deer on an easier to draw tag. And I'm not saying easier chance. I don't know. If you know how to hunt things right and you can hunt the thick and you can glass the thick and you can do it, there's some gems out there that don't take points. And that's basically what I do.
Yeah, that's always a strategy in my head too. It's like most of my big deer are easy to draw units. They're hard to hunt for a reason, and you just got to work harder and glass differently and use different tactics that everyone else would just run roads and glass in that open country to get in that thick stuff and hunt deer that way. You can be really successful on quote unquote bad hunts.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to think a buck's he's got to be pretty elusive and work pretty hard in a low draw, low point unit. And he's got to learn that. Whereas you burn a lot of points, those deer may be a little bit more nonchalant because they just see less pressure, and they probably get whacked before they're really hitting their prime.
Yep.
Yeah, interesting. You got more mule deer questions before we switch over and talk some arrows?
We can talk arrows now.
I
know you've been jonesing.
You've had your fill of muley talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. So arrow study, you did that last year, the first big push, which was super cool.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that.
Was that a burning desire for you that you've been like just working on for a while? And
oh yeah, long time. Well before everyone saw it, and I'm so glad that it was well received because I invested quite a bit of my own money, obviously a lot of my own time, but a lot of my own money into that study last year, just because I wanted to see it through. And I've had this thought in my mind of why can't we have? I mean, why can't we study ballistics? You're really aware of this because you're just like a gun freak and bullet freak. I mean, I know that you've done some archery stuff too, but it's so well studied and documented, and I can take my 28 Nosler first shot like cold bore, and I can hit exactly where I'm aiming to 1,300 yards.
You can build this stuff so easily with one gun compared to the next gun, your buddy's gun. In 5 minutes, you can be dialed.
It's just like, I mean, the art of long-range shooting is wind calls, right? But once you get some time with a kestrel and you start figuring that out, you can get it figured out. And I'm like, why can't we study ballistics for arrows? And for one, it's more challenging because everyone's arrow builds are different. We aren't. It's not like you got a custom. I mean, there are custom bullet makers, but everyone's got their own custom setup, right? But the physics behind arrow flight, I understand physics. I understand aerodynamics. I understand, I have a strong background in computational fluid dynamics as a chemical engineer, which is that CFD stuff that everyone sees Bill and Iron Will post. I have a strong background in that subject. And I've just always wanted to be able to advance aero ballistics. There's a gentleman by the name of James Park, who's probably the foremost authority from a technical subject, not so much so I'm going to use the words quantitative and qualitative, and I've come to realize that a lot of people don't realize what that means. Quantitative results, quantity, means more numbers focused, like you're quantifying your results. Qualitative results are like more trends, like what do you see, how do you see things behave overall? Not so much numbers, but trends. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think we've got a really good idea qualitatively how things happen, and James Park captured that really well in his papers. He's probably got 30 papers on arrow flight, mostly from a target perspective, but I wanted some quantities involved. I wanted to quantify some of this stuff. So Tristan at Precision Cut Archery, who is I very much respect him. He and I are very much on the same wavelength, and very early on in the development of his stuff, he approached me and I got into it and gave him a few pointers, and we just hit it off really well. Noticed some oddities in his beta testing that he corrected, and so we've just hit it off really well. And I just saw what he had in his ballistic software. So for everyone who doesn't know, Precision Cut Archery does advanced archery ballistic calculations, sight tapes, wind holds, that sort of thing for arrows.
Yep.
It's kind of like Archer's Advantage, but with a proper drag model.
And a lot easier to use.
Yeah, a
lot more user friendly.
A lot easier to use, but he's actually matching the physics much closer than anybody else, like Archer's Advantage or any sight tape company before this modern era. I think there's a couple others, one other that I know of besides Precision Cut. I don't even know the name, but Precision, in my mind, should own and does own the market now for sight tapes because it's just amazing software. But just being able to see what he has, and the fact that he uses a proper drag model means that you can back out a drag coefficient for an arrow build. So if you change the launch velocity, so as you change the arrow build, you've got different you're affecting the drag and you're affecting the arrow weight. And both of those are going to slow down your arrows. You can't just look at downrange speed as, you know, if the velocity decays, right? So you got your launch velocity and your downrange velocity. You can't just look at downrange velocity because you've got two things happening. You got your arrow weight and you've got the drag of the arrow is changing. So you've got to, you need something more. You need a mathematical model to help you decouple those two. And that's what you have in precision cut archery. So I'm very well aware of what his software does, that we can back. It's not the same thing, but we're essentially backing out a BC for an arrow build, a ballistic coefficient. It's called a drag coefficient. It's applied in the math a little differently than the BC. Drag coefficient is inherent to the calculations. The BC is something that is a single number that we use to quantify the efficiency of a projectile. We can think of the drag coefficient similarly. So you get the idea of, you got your ballistics, but then there's another competing force. So drag works against the arrow.
Yep.
It's an opposing force that slows down the arrow in the direction of the arrow. So it's just, think about air as a viscous fluid. Think about shooting an arrow in air and then shooting an arrow in water. How is the arrow going to go further in water or is it in air? It's going to go further in air, right? Because it's less viscous, less dense. So that's what drag is. Think about that concept of shooting in air and water. That's drag, right? That's the drag of the arrow. It's slowing it down. But then there's this other concept called lift recovery. So if you guys, a lot of people, so an airplane flies by lift. It generates high pressure, the wing shape, and the air passing over the wing generates a high pressure below the wing and a low pressure above. And why does the wind blow? Because there's an area of high pressure and an area of low pressure, and wind goes from high pressure to low pressure. So that's what's generating lift below an airplane, causing it to rise. Have you ever wondered how a wind turbine works?
Yep.
It's the same thing. It's lift.
Yep.
There's a high pressure on one side of the vane and a low pressure on the other. It causes the vane to move. That's the exact same thing that's going on with arrows. So lift is a force that is perpendicular to the motion of flight. And I theorized that a lot of people before me thought that drag and lift go hand in hand. But I theorized that no, I don't think that's the case. And when we proved it in the study, that you can increase drag without, you can increase lift without increasing drag. Or you can, typically, if you increase drag, you also increase lift, but you can increase lift without seeing an increase in drag. So increasing lift is good.
Yeah.
Recovers your arrow better. Increasing drag is bad. And the biggest takeaway in that study that we did last year was that a lot of the stuff in the industry right now that's just hearsay or wives' tales or whatever, I think we put a lot of that
gut
to bed.
feeling.
The gut feeling, a lot of big takeaways. And I've got I'm not a big YouTuber, but I know that people consume a lot of information on podcasts and YouTube. It's probably easier for their commutes or whatever to just listen to stuff. So I've got like 4 YouTube videos, it's all but on my YouTube channel, Yates in the Backcountry, and I kind of deep dive on some aspects of, we've got the study results from last year out, and a lot of people want some guidance on that.
Yeah.
Like, what are we looking at? They aren't engine nerds or archery nerds like me, and
Yeah, they want something very digestible.
digestible. Yeah.
So to that point, what did you learn? Like, if you could take it from a 30,000 foot view, and you're like, this is in layman's terms, like, what do you think?
So we tested arrow diameter. Arrow diameter matters for drag.
Smaller, better.
Smaller is better, though. Tuning a smaller diameter arrow can be a little trickier. Yeah, because the smaller the diameter gets, so a bow is a mechanical system, right? And I'm going to explain this concept now because we're going to get to it in a bit with the FOC testing that I'm doing this year. But a bow is a mechanical system that's made with tolerances. So the string doesn't track the exact same way every time, right? Like, there are micro variations. The roller guard induces some left and right variances in the bowstring, and it doesn't hit the same. It doesn't hit the knock the same way every time. And as the arrow comes down in diameter, how that string hits that smaller diameter arrow and nock is more important. You can imagine if you had an arrow that was like this big in diameter and your bowstring was a hair. Does it matter if that hair hits an arrow that's this big in diameter, whether it's a 64th of an inch this way or a 64th of an inch that way? It doesn't matter, right? Like you got to imagine, like when you're applying that torque, you know, a 64th of an inch this way just doesn't mean as much on an arrow that's that big.
Right.
But if you shrink down in diameter now and you're like this and you've got a bowstring that's a quarter of the diameter of the arrow, if it hits a 64th inch this way or a 64th inch that way, does that matter? Oh yeah, it does. Especially as you increase in FOC. So now imagine you've got this point weight out in front of the arrow, right? So I'm talking beyond dynamic spine reaction. If you've got this point weight out in front and you've got this bowstring that may hit a 64th inch this way, may hit a 64th inch that way, and I'm not picking on any one bow manufacturer. It's just a manufactured part. This is just how it is. So now if you've got a lot of point weight up front that's resisting, mass resists motion, right? So if you've got this arrow with this heavy point weight up front and the string hits this way or it can hit that way and that wants to resist motion, the dynamic spine, the arrow wants to buckle. That's dynamic spine. But then you've also got this effect like it can kind of pivot off the back of the arrow because that's not fixed, right? Because that string is fluid, and with that point weight wanting to stay not moving, that back of the arrow can pivot. So that's what you're seeing with the smaller diameter shaft. So it's a little harder to tune. But we haven't gotten into so you got internal ballistics, external ballistics, and you got terminal ballistics, just like the rifle world. Internal ballistics, how the arrow is coming off the power stroke, that first little bit of the path, I quantify that as an internal ballistics. External ballistics is very well documented. That's just the physics of arrow flight, trajectory. Terminal ballistics, what your arrow is doing on impact. Anyway, so getting back to last year's study, some setups that we were, I wasn't shocked by. I'm not a big Fletch guy. I've never felt like it does much. And the study kind of showed it that if you're the type of guy that wants to take that you have a vein, right, and you shoot a 3 Fletch for mechanicals, and you just like, oh, I like this vein, I'm going to add a 4th for fixed
stability.
For a 4th for fixed blade. So I've got this plot where I've got on the left hand axis I've got drag. That's an XY plot. Left hand on the vertical axis is drag, and on the horizontal axis it's lift recovery. So we're quantifying those two differently, and literally like oftentimes you add that 4th Fletch. And you'd want to see a shift in the good direction on lift recovery, but it's just a vertical shift, meaning that you're just adding drag to your shaft without increasing the lift recovery. The vein that did increase in lift recovery when you added that 4th vein was the AAE 23, and there was like one other one that was really small, but as soon as you get up into a bigger vein, I saw zero benefit to adding a 4th Fletch.
You're just adding more drag, less foot per second overall for
more weight, more time building your arrow.
Yeah. Oh man, I hate fletching arrows.
Yeah, I mean we all do.
Especially adding one more to it makes it a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And then so I saw that, and then the other thing that I saw, another big takeaway was optimizing the helical. So 100% helical or offset matters. It's really important. We had like 4 arrows that we did: a straight Fletch, a 2-degree helical, and then like a 4 to 5 degree helical with that mini max, whatever the blue jig is. I forget the name of it, but it puts like a 4 or 5 degree wicked helical on it.
The Arizona Easy Fletch.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, it really spins those all the way around, huh?
Yeah, it does. So the 2 degrees of helical for sure was the sweet spot. Same thing. You see, we went from the straight Fletch to the 2 degrees of helical and lots more lift recovery. And then we went to that 4 to 5 degrees of helical, almost a direct vertical translation in the point, like very little increase in lift recovery. And in a couple instances we saw a decrease in lift recovery because I think it just I don't know what's going on. I kind of want to use if we have time, I want to use a Phantom. We're going to have Phantoms available to us this year. I kind of want to see what's going on. We saw some interesting things like groups opening up especially with fill tips, with the really high helical arrows. Yeah. Like I remember in the study, so I'm kind of that project manager at the study, and we have teams of guys doing things, and I'm like overseeing everything, watching the arrows land down range. And I'm telling you, we got to that first round with the max helical arrows, and we were just shooting. We're trying to quantify ballistics with a fill tip in this particular case, and we get to the max helical arrows, and the group. I mean, we'd been stacking arrows with the Easton shooting machine that were like this, right? Like 6 arrows, just incredible shooting at 70 yards. And it opened up to like this, and I was like, hold up, something's the
machine's off.
Machine's off, screwed up, and we check everything, shoot an arrow through paper, everything looks fine. And we're like, okay, whatever. Go on to the next arrow. Bam, right back to like this. And then it happens again. And then at that point, we were like, oh my word, it's the max helical arrows.
Yeah.
So what it seemed to do with like the max helical, it did actually correct, like as soon as we put our control for our lift recovery was an iron wheel wide, because it's a very consistent broadhead, but it's also really big.
Sure.
So consistency is good, and we liked the fact that it was big because it can cause. So broadheads also cause lift.
Yeah.
Lift on the front of your arrow is bad. Lift on the back of your arrow is good. So that's a big broadhead, very consistent, so we can get away from consistency issues with broadheads, but it can generate a lot of lift. So that was our control arrow for the lift recovery testing. And what we did was we took the bow out of tune, we torqued it, and we quantified with a given setup, we quantified how much that arrow with the bow out of tune drifts compared to the fill tip. And it was a very practical means of quantifying this lift recovery. So we did that, and it was just interesting to see with these max helicals, they got that iron wheel in the vicinity really well. So they really controlled that drift, but then there just seemed to be more randomness where they would land. You know what I mean? And we saw that with the fill tips a little bit as well.
Yeah, interesting.
So those were two of the big takeaways. A few of the big takeaways. I mean, there's
a lot. I would encourage people. I mean, more than we could cover here.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah.
Dive in, watch your YouTube videos that you put out, read the articles on. I think they're linked through Precision Cut
everything.
Archery.
So the landing base for the study is on the Precision Cut Archery website. He's got a big section there dedicated to it, and everything links from there. My YouTube, Western Hunter article. There's people podcasting about the study, and
oh, for sure.
There's people podcasting about the study without even like any of the participants of the study on it. They just sit there
themselves.
They're trying to pull from
which
it.
Is cool. Which is what
which is
get people talking.
Probably the intent, right?
Yeah, exactly.
To some degree.
That's the whole reason why we made it free, and I was adamant that everything be free.
That's super cool. That's free.
So it begs the question: what's your arrow build look like?
So I've been a 4mm guy forever. I like. This is going to come weird to a lot of people, but I like deep 6 hit inserts. I'm a big believer in hit inserts. That's the insert that's recessed inside.
Shaft.
It directly aligns the best tolerance part of your arrow is the ID, and the hit insert directly aligns the shank of your point or your broadhead, which is that shoulder, right before, directly aligns it to the shaft, so it eliminating tolerances there. And then I shoot a collar over the top. Yep. Typically, I've shot the iron will 225 grain steel collar over the top. So hit insert, you can load up since there isn't metal there or whatever, insert there to protect the shaft. It can, that was kind of the one weakness, but and I think maybe why Deep 6 wasn't super well received when it first came out, but Deep 6 hit insert with a collar is, I think, God's gift to inserts, and I think that it is that much more superior. I don't like outserts. I don't like half outs. You're stacking tolerances there. So I like that. I like 4mm arrows. I like that for the as you minimize drag, you'd understand this, as you minimize drag or increase the BC of your bullet, you have less wind drift, and the same goes for arrow flight. You have there's a concept called aerodynamic jump. It's different than the aerodynamic jump because that mostly translates to a vertical translation of your bullet. But aerodynamic jump in arrows is how that arrow comes off the bow initially can cause an angular deviation in the horizontal, and then from there you have wind drift due to drag. So there's some aerodynamic jump aspect of it, but then in flight, like bullets, it's a lot of drag. So if you're minimizing your drag of your arrow, you're minimizing a large portion of the physics that dictates how much it's going to drift in the wind.
Gotcha.
So that's where that's good. So I do, even though it's a touch harder to tune, smaller diameter arrow is good for lower drag. It's going to drift less in the wind. And then I shoot. I am a open country mule deer hunter, so I am trying to minimize the overall trajectory of my arrow. So I have this concept that I call range forgiveness. So at 80 yards with my bow, I want to know how far off I can be on my range estimate and still land an arrow in the kill zone. So if a buck if I'm shooting for 80 yards, but the buck's really at 82 or 78 or 83, so typically my range forgiveness with my setups are 2.5 to 3 yards, which is pretty impactful at 80 yards. Like a lot of slower setups, maybe only 81 or 81 and a half, and to get that extra yard and a half, because that's what you're talking about. Right? I'm not talking like you're going to misrange an animal by 5 yards, right?
But a yard and a half.
A yard and a half, so that like a lot of people, well, the difference between your setup and mine's only a yard and a half. I'm like,
that's a big deal.
That's like from here to the moon to me.
Yeah,
like
sure.
What are you talking about? Like, are you saying that in my preparation and studying this stuff, I can improve my range forgiveness by a yard and a half? Hell yeah, I'm going to do it.
Right.
Like, people look at it and they just don't realize that that's a huge gain in my mind. Like, you're not going to be off 10 yards on your range. I mean, you could be, but when you make those ranging mistakes, and that's been my experience out west, and if you do a lot of elk hunting, so you probably misranged a ton with grass and sticks and
there's a lot of elk that I've shot that I didn't have a chance to range.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're estimating based on where I think he's going to pass by something that I have, and then closing the distance or going away from it, and you're just estimating it. So I agree with you. I've always said, like, it's the reason I shoot a 5-pin sight. I don't know what you shoot, but I've always liked a 5-pin sight for that reason, is because I've got a reference point I'm trying to like dumb this down as possible, because in the moment, like I get buck fever still, or bull fever, right? I'm trying to make it more forgiving when I'm at my most heightened state. And I want to shoot a fast setup that's going to give me more, range forgiveness. Yeah, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, so this concept of building a forgiving bow, I think 10, 15 years ago, was shooting a heavy arrow and making your bow so it's quiet and all that. And I just whatever my arrow this last year is going 315 feet per second, 80 pounds. Like, the snap of the bow going off isn't so much what I'm worried about. I think the buzz of the arrow coming towards the animal does it. Like, a lot of people don't believe that, but you can Google search and find guys in Africa who shoot a lot of game, or even Australia, have done tests on this. And you can go Google it. They'll be at a water hole in a blind, and and we've all seen, I think probably the most sensitive game on the planet is antelope in Africa, and you see. And you see so much movement of those animals, them jumping the string, or we say jumping the string, but I think it's jumping the arrow.
Jumping the arrow.
So, but it's so what's interesting is you see it, but then they've also done it where they've put a target actually in the opposite direction of the water hole, and they shoot the arrow out of the blind at the target, the opposite direction, and the antelope doesn't move.
Interesting.
That is really interesting.
I have to check that out.
Yeah, so I've long believed that it's that they're jumping the arrow. It's the sound of a bow going off, generally it's 30, 60 yards away, and it's just so instantaneous and fast. Yeah, it may put them on alert, but I don't think it's what's causing the ducking issue. I think
And it's a lower frequency. It's a thud. It's
Yeah,
not a.
it's
It's
like
not
a-
a.
Yeah, it's like so it's I think it's a more natural sense. It sounds like a stick breaking, honestly, and it may put them on alert, but I don't think it's causing the
that reaction.
Yeah, so that I think they are physically ducking at something that's inbound to them, and
Yeah.
anyway, so I like I try to shoot a broadhead and a vane that's pretty quiet from that aspect.
Do you have a vein you like?
The Flex 360
That's what you go
was
on?
the vane that I shot. I've shot that vane for 10 years, and it was the quietest vane in the study. We did some very elaborate noise testing just on vanes. We didn't have the budget to do it for broadheads. We may try to do some broadhead noise testing this year, but for the most part, it's not hard with the broadhead. You want to shoot. I mean, you got to have a broadhead, right?
Sure.
So you just want to minimize like that exposed blade, minimize venting. Exposed blade really generates a lot of noise. So like mechanicals that have the blades kind of on the outside, even though they're compact, can generate a little bit more noise.
They're not tucked in quite as tight.
Yeah, not tucked in quite as tight. Certainly, fixed blade broadheads that have vented blades are a lot noisier.
Yeah, I shot slick tricks. Shot a lot of animals with a slick trick, and my lord,
they are noisy.
They are like an F-16 coming in.
They are, but they fly well, and that 4-blade slug hole is really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so the Fletch 360 is lift recovery on that vane was really good. We did have a little bit more drag, but what I really like about that vane is it was the quietest vane in the testing, and the fact that it was the quietest vane and how much lift recovery it provided was just I've kind of known it, right? I didn't qualitatively, I knew it. I didn't know it quantitatively.
Yep.
So I'm seeing the numbers now. So that vane is really good. It would be a good vane for like a slick trick. I mean, for a smaller or smaller fixed blade, it would be great. There were vanes that did better, that had less drag than it. It's kind of a long vane. But basically, the bang for the buck, really quiet, great lift recovery, and pretty good on drag. It's a vane that I just feel like I think performed extremely well in the testing, and I've killed a lot of animals with it, and I've killed a lot of big, jumpy animals. You know, like the type of deer that are really susceptible.
Would duck an arrow.
Yeah. So that's great. And there was a number of other vanes that performed well. I would always say, you figure out how much you feel about noise. Always prioritize lift recovery over drag. We all goof up in the moment, so I definitely wouldn't try to think you're some bad A. And I mean, even Kyle Douglas and Bodie Turner, right now probably the two top archers in our sport. They're still worried. I talked to Bodie yesterday, and he loves the study because he just wants to learn how to make his setups more forgiving. And we've got, arguably, if not the best, one of the best bow shooters in the world right now, talking to me about loving the study because he can learn about forgiveness.
Because you've never been able to actually, it's all been on feelings, and I mean that's all limited by your own ability, your own experience. It's awesome. It's been really awesome to see somebody that has taken all of this and put it into a really well thought out study.
Yeah.
Like I was super stoked about it. I've changed my own arrow setup based on it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So we're running low on time. I want to give you just a few seconds. So you're working on another, like part 2, right?
Part 2. Yep.
And when will it be released? And then what are the focal points?
So I am right now, and we've kind of snuck some teasers out. So we're not actually. I'm in prep phase right now. So we've knock-tuned like 300 plus shafts with the shooting machine. That's an immense amount of effort.
I can imagine.
Oh my lord!
So we're developing the control. We're developing the experiment we're advancing from my thoughts to taking it into practice. So that's what we're doing right now with the Easton engineers. I'm explaining this concept of the study. We're proving it out, figuring out what we need to do we have one Phantom now, Phantom high-speed camera. we're hoping to rent 2 more. We've got some really cool, I'd mentioned before, we've got some like 10 or 12 foot tripods that really right stuff have made for us so we can mount and shoot underneath the Phantom camera. So this year, the steady dates where we're at the 70 meter range that we've rented is March 4th, or sorry, no, not March 4th, the 10th through the 13th.
Gotcha.
So everything I'm doing before those dates is all prepped for that time. And then it's probably going to take us a month or 2 to get through results. So probably May timeframe, which is a whole lot better than last year. I was getting like death threats.
I know. People wanted that they wanted it yesterday.
Oh, they did. And I recognize, I mean, mid-July was bad timing, but it was really hard for us to get the
immense
facility.
Amount of effort. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, an immense amount of effort. I mean, I put in quite a bit of my own money to make that successful last year. So the study this year is going to do, there's 3 parts. There's a repeat of last year's study with more veins and a few more broadheads that just collectively people want to see. And there was enough response for that, and we've got a command of how to do that. So we feel like we're going to be able to do that pretty quick. So we're doing that. And then we're also doing kind of a repeat of last year, but with a much faster launch velocity. So we're trying to be above 320 feet per second basically get an idea of, we were at 290-ish, 295, I believe. No, 290-ish before. So I'd like to quantify lift recovery and drag for a select few broadheads and veins at a much faster velocity. And then the big endeavor is front of center. So the weight distribution of the arrow, how much point weight, so you're looking at how much point weight, the grains per inch, so how much your shaft weighs. The physics of flight dictates that the more point weight you have, and if you can minimize shaft weight back to the vanes, you have more torque. If all the arrow weight is up front and you have like no arrow weight back to the vanes, you've maximized your torque, right? So so your lift recovery is benefited in the trajectory of the flight path of your arrow by FOC. But the reason I feel that more isn't necessarily better is you have this internal ballistics aspect where remember I was explaining about the concept of how the string hits behind. So it's really accentuated the more FOC you have, and you kind of can get this pivoting effect. It becomes way more important for your arrow to hit right behind. So I think it becomes more tune sensitive. So we're trying to find that optimization. We'll be shooting with the bow in tune, the bow out of tune, out of a precision shooting machine that's extremely repeatable. So like Bodie Turner, Kyle Douglas, whoever, like these guys are super repeatable, right? With their bow in tune and doing the right thing. It's really hard to be repeatable doing a bad thing. But the shooting machine is perfect at that.
Right.
So we've got this control, and we're able to shoot the shooting machine and shoot the bow consistently torqued the same way. And that's kind of how we're going to be able to quantify. What would be interesting to see is as the bow is out of tune, and we're going to be able to see kind of from an internals ballistics is how far does the arrow get out of tune, and then how well it recovers.
Right.
And there's probably a breaking point there where, the bow's just getting too far out of tune.
Right.
And that the external ballistics, the lift recovery can't correct it. So that's the optimization we're looking for.
It'd be cool. Yeah, I'm stoked.
I'm glad there's a guy like you out there doing that.
Get it out, will you, James?
Yeah.
Well, thanks, man. We really appreciate it. I could talk to you forever. Like I could talk to you. I could just sit and listen to you talk. It's just so fascinating to me.
So incredible.
I love the details. And I mean, as you've been talking, so much of anybody's success, regardless of what it is that they do, whether it is a Bodie Turner or Kyle Douglas or you hunting a high country mule deer, it really boils down to details.
Details, yeah.
Details matter a lot. Mm-hmm. So thanks for doing it today. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. You guys are awesome. I appreciate it. And you guys are quite successful yourselves, and I've followed you both for a long time, and have a lot of respect for you. And thanks.
Appreciate it. It's a fun conversation. Really enjoyed this one. Got to do part 2 later.
Yeah. I'm just too dumb to quit. That's the only thing I've got going for me. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.